Welcome back, everybody, to the Philadelphia Eagles franchise here on Madden 22. Today we've got the 2022 NFL Draft, a video that I have been working very hard on the past couple of days, so I really hope you guys enjoy it. It's a very similar format to the draft videos I did last year in the Jacksonville Jaguars franchise. It's not exactly the same, but if you watched that series, it'll be fairly similar. We did make quite a few big moves in free agency, signing guys like Deshaun Elliott, Jack Fox, Leonard Fournette, and others, but we still have quite a few holes to fill, and we have a lot of picks to do that, including 3 and 12 in the first round. So unfortunately, Madden's draft class file sharer is not working. You cannot save and download draft classes. See, it says the file you're attempting to put in is using inappropriate language, which is dumb. So you cannot download draft classes right now, but once you're able to, I will let you guys know so you can download this draft class and be able to use it. This is a really fun draft class with a lot of really cool and exciting players, and some of these guys are going to become Philadelphia Eagles, which is going to be really fun. So we're going to see what happens in our draft. We're going to see what happens around the league. And I'm excited to start this year's NFL Draft with the first pick. The Indianapolis Colts are on the clock, and they select Malachi Madison, quarterback out of Texas. No surprise here, number 1 overall. The Colts need a franchise quarterback. The Carson Wentz experiment did not really work out, and Malachi Madison is the best prospect in this draft class. I think it's fair to say the 3 best QB prospects to enter the draft in the past 30 years are Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, and Malachi Madison, all 3 of whom have gotten drafted by the Colts. Pretty wild. The Detroit Lions are on the clock here at the second pick, the only team now ahead of the Philadelphia Eagles. Who are they going to select? And it's going to be Rube Raleigh, cornerback out of Alabama, who is a 65 overall. Typical Lions. Now, there are some positives about Raleigh. He's the youngest player in the draft at 20 years old. He has good ball skills, but he can't cover. He's not athletic, and he's not worth a second overall pick. So a really bad pick here by the Detroit Lions, but it's the Lions, so what else do you expect? So that brings the Eagles on the clock here at 3. No major surprises in the top 2. I didn't think the Lions would pick Raleigh, but that's not a total shock. So at the top of this board, there are 3 players I think the Eagles are going to look at. Akabuzi Uchichi is the first one, the big defensive tackle out of Clemson who tore up the combine. A little bit undersized, but he's a freak athlete, and the sky is the limit with him. Cornerback Nehemiah Richardson. He had a disappointing combine, but is one of the most technically sound players in the class and someone who I think could make an early impact. And then Zayden Savage, the wide receiver out of Penn State who ran a 4.31 40-yard dash. Has some character concerns, but the talent with him is off the charts. There's also the opportunity to trade this pick away. However, the Eagles have decided to hold on to the 3rd overall pick, not trade down, but instead choose a player. But now the question is, which of those 3 players that I just mentioned is it going to be? Uchichi, Richardson, or Savage? With the 3rd pick in the 2022 National Football League Draft, our Philadelphia Eagles select Nehemiah Richardson, cornerback out of The Ohio State University. Richardson is a 79 overall with hidden development. The game is considering it a reach, but he is definitely not a reach. I think this is a great selection by the Philadelphia Eagles. Richardson is one of the most pro-ready players in this year's draft class. Excellent awareness and play rec really stands off for me. Good athleticism, 92 speed, 92 excel, 91 agility. He's well-rounded in man and zone as well. Solid ball skills. Now his hands need to improve, but he does know how to find the football. And although his ball skills aren't that bad at all, I would consider that his weakness because he's so good at everything else. Smart player, refined tackler, good in man and zone, versatile, high character. Everything you want in a top pick is what you got here with Nehemiah Richardson. Somebody who has a high floor, but also, in my opinion, a high ceiling. He is likely going to start opposite Darius Slay right away because that's how good he is day 1. And overall, I think this is a home run selection for the Philadelphia Eagles. Get yourselves a true lockdown corner for the next decade. The Minnesota Vikings are now on the clock here at 4, and they select Akabuzi Uchichi out of Clemson. So Uchichi's wait will not last any longer. He is an 81 overall, tied for the highest rating of any player in this year's draft class. 94 strength. He is a bully, but he's also quite athletic. 80 speed, 84 excel. He's good with block shedding, power moves, and finesse, so he's a really well-rounded player. Great pick by Minnesota. The Lions have their second first-round pick thanks to the Matthew Stafford trade. 5th overall. Who are they going to select? And it's going to be Zayden Savage, wide receiver out of Penn State, the other 81 overall rated player in this draft class. So of the 3 players the Eagles were considering, Richardson is a 79 overall, is actually the lowest rated player. Zayden Savage is going to be the Lions' best receiver right away. Although there are character concerns, the talent with him is off the charts, and in my opinion, that could be a home run pick. So that brings up the New York Jets here at 6, a very interesting spot, and they will select Matt Miller, running back out of Westlake. The first Westlake Hornet is off the board. Matt Miller is going to be a New York Jet. They did sign Marlon Mack in the offseason, but clearly that will not deter them from taking away the ultra-explosive Matt Miller, who had a great college career at Westlake, overshadowed early on by Isaiah Sparks, but once he got his opportunity to shine, he shined, and I think he will very quickly overtake Marlon Mack on that New York Jets depth chart. That brings up the Carolina Panthers at 7, and they will select Ivan Bell, offensive tackle out of Duke. Bell is a 74 overall, only with normal development, the first player to not have hidden, but Carolina has a really big hole at left tackle. Even though Ivan Bell is listed as a right tackle, he is still the blindside blocker for Duke's left-handed quarterback, so he'll be able to move to the left side, be Sam Darnold's blindside. Overall, not a bad pick. At 8, the Denver Broncos select Florentino Phoenix, safety out of Westlake. So the second Hornet is off the board. Florentino Phoenix will likely move over to strong safety since the Broncos already have Justin Simmons. But Phoenix is a very versatile, well-rounded player. Doesn't really have many weaknesses in his game. I don't know if he's ever going to be an elite player, but I think he's someone who's going to be a quality starter in this league for a decade. So now at 9, that brings up another AFC West team, the Las Vegas Raiders, and they select Jaquarion Alabaster III, defensive end out of Alabama. Alabaster is a 74 overall with hidden development. The Raiders obviously traded away Cleveland Ferrell to the Philadelphia Eagles earlier in the offseason, and they need somebody to join forces with Max Crosby and Yannick Ngakoue. So now that brings up the New Orleans Saints at 10. They do have Ian Book as their starting quarterback, which is not great, but they actually want to move down from this pick rather than select the next best quarterback, Xander Vanderwall. The team that's going to be moving up for this selection is a QB-needy team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers will be sending 17 and 49 to New Orleans for pick 10. Pittsburgh currently has Colin Kaepernick as their starting quarterback, which is better than New Orleans starting quarterback Ian Book. But Pittsburgh really likes Xander Vanderwall. He is going to be the pick. Vanderwall is a 72 overall with only normal development. Very different quarterback in comparison to Malachi Madison. Madison is about the arm talent, the physical skills. Vanderwall does not have a cannon. He's not overly mobile, but he's a very refined passer, very good accuracy, and he is a lefty, which makes things interesting. One of only 2 left-handed main full-time starting quarterbacks in the NFL, along with Tua Tagovailoa. At 11, the Giants select Nigel Combs, linebacker out of Washington, a player I imagine the Eagles would have heavily considered with the 12th overall pick. By the way, the Eagles are up next, in case you forgot. Nigel Combs is a really solid player, in my opinion. The Giants need a lot of help at linebacker, and Combs can fly over the field, 90 speed, has some work to do, a little rough around the edges, but I really like his skill set. So the Eagles are on the board at 12, and there are a lot of really talented players for Philadelphia to pick. Probably not going to pick another corner here since they already drafted Nehemiah Richardson, but you got Russell Ingram Jr. on the board. He was not supposed to fall to 12. Calvin Johnson, Elton Smith, Ifeanyi Nachukwu. Maybe you want to go with an offensive playmaker like an Omega Morris or a Tykeem Keone. Valescu Markovitsi, Emmanuel Toussaint II. A ton of choices here for the Birds. But with the 12th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles will be selecting Tykeem Keone, wide receiver out of the University of Texas. So the Eagles are going to add another playmaker to the offense in Keone, who is a 78 overall with hidden depth. Keone is the 11th ranked player in the draft, selected 12 overall. Stands at 6 foot, weighs at 190. He's not a big guy, but he's not a small guy. 95 speed. This dude can run. He has pretty good hands. 83 catching, 83 spec catch, 82 catch in traffic. His route running is all right. He's good in the short game. His medium route running needs a lot of work, but his deep route running isn't bad. Also a fine separator as well, and he's pretty good with the ball in his hands. So long story short, he does not have any weaknesses. But one thing scouts really question about him is how much of his dominance this year at Texas was him playing well, and how much of it was the fact that he had the best quarterback in the country in Malachi Madison. Personally, I think it's a little bit of both. Obviously, he was given the luxury of having such a good passer in Madison, but Tykeem Keon is an awesome player, and I think this is someone who's going to be a really, really dynamic force in the NFL. Him and Devontae Smith as the 1-2 wide receiver punch of the future is going to be really nice with Jalen Reagor as well. I think that's a nasty trio going forward. So Tykeem Keon is the Eagles' second first-round selection as we go forward. New England at 13 selects Deontay Bush Jr., cornerback out of Kansas. He is a 75 overall with normal dev. Not great, but not bad. I don't think he's going to be a bust, but I don't think he's ever going to be a great player. New England may be looking to shop Stephon Gilmore as he gets a little bit older, and maybe Deontay Bush Jr. can be the replacement. The Jaguars at 14 are in a weird spot. There's not really anybody who I think on the board for them is a great fit, so they are going to move down with the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona will be sending 21 and 53 to Jacksonville for pick 14. Really solid value for Jacksonville. They're only moving down 7 spots. They had a second-round pick. And for the Cardinals, there's a really good player on the board that they want. That player is going to be running back Omega Morris out of Illinois, who is a 79 overall with hidden development. The Cardinals currently have James Conner as their starting running back, and that's just not good enough. Omega Morris is pretty much James Conner on steroids. He's a bruising, powerful back, doesn't have blazing speed in the open field, but he's a really tough runner, and I think he is going to make Arizona's offense even better than it already is. The Green Bay Packers at 15 select Ifeanyi Chukwu, defensive back out of South Carolina, heavily considered with the Eagles' second first-round selection. Had Tykeem Keon been off the board, I think Nwachukwu would have been the pick. The Packers are already set at safety. They have Darnell Savage and Adrian Amos, but they need a lot of help at linebacker. I think Nwachukwu has the size and versatility to play linebacker in sub-packages, and maybe he will permanently have a role there. Russell Ingram Jr. is finally off the board. He goes to the Tennessee Titans at 16. About damn time he got picked. Ingram really had no business falling this far, but the Titans are not going to complain. I don't think Ingram is a perfect fit on their defense, standing at 6'5", 250, not really a 3-4 defensive end. He has 91 speed, so I do think he will have the explosiveness to be a 3-4 outside linebacker. The New Orleans Saints on the board at 17. They select Valiescu Markovitsi, guard out of Michigan State, another player the Eagles were heavily considering with their other first-round pick. So a great first round here for the New Orleans Saints. Not only do they get a sick player in Markovitsi, who's already the 12th ranked left guard in the NFL, but they also had an additional second-round pick courteous of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the Saints are walking away as one of the biggest winners in the entire draft thus far. Their division rivals, the Atlanta Falcons, are now on the board at 18, and the Falcons are going to make a bold selection, selecting Justin Graves out of Westlake. Graves is a 75 with hidden dev, and he has some very interesting attributes that really pop off. 99 speed, 99 acceleration, 99 agility, 99 jumping. He has good ball skills as well, 75 catching, but his coverage ratings and tackling are very low. Justin Graves is not a great football player yet, but he has the athleticism to be really fun. I think the Falcons are going to use him in a number of different ways on both sides of the ball, so look out for him to be a sort of Swiss Army knife for the Atlanta Falcons. The Washington football team at 19 will be selecting linebacker Emmanuel Toussaint II out of the University of Miami. You thought Washington's defense could get even better? Well, here you go. Toussaint is a 76 overall with hidden development, a really talented and versatile linebacker. He can get to the quarterback, yet another pass rusher at their disposal, but he can do a lot of other things as well. Not really great in coverage, but he can stop the run at a decent level, and he's also a solid power rusher too. The Los Angeles Chargers are now on the board at 20, and they select guard Kyle Harris out of Westlake. So there are quite a few really good Westlake offensive linemen in this class. The first one off the board, and in my opinion, the best one is Kyle Harris, who's a 79 overall, already the 11th ranked right guard in the NFL, and the Chargers are going to give their golden goose, Justin Herbert, even more protection. That brings up the Jaguars at 21. They moved down earlier today from 14, and And they're going to stick with the theme of Westlake offensive line as they select the right tackle, John Thompson. Thompson is a 76 overall with hidden development, so a pretty good selection here. And Jacksonville, like New Orleans, with a really strong first round. Not only do they draft a good player, but they add a second-round pick in the process. So really good start to this draft for Jacksonville. I think they're doing a great job, and they hope him and Walker Little can be the tackle duo of the future. The Bengals on the board at 22 are going to make it 3 in a row as they select Elton Smith, the center out of Westlake. He only has normal dev, but he is a really good center, the 15th ranked one in the NFL. So that is 3 consecutive picks with Westlake offensive linemen going off the board. That's kind of crazy. The New York Jets are back on the clock with their second first-round pick of the day. They already picked Westlake running back Matt Miller. So unfortunately for Miller, they can't draft any of the boys up front because they just went off the board. But instead, the Jets will pick Calvin Johnson, the defensive end out of Arkansas. Johnson was not supposed to fall this far. He was projected to be a top 15 pick, but multiple pass rushers have dropped in this class, including Russell Ingram Jr. and a few other guys as well. So the drop on pass rushers is why he's fallen here. The Cleveland Browns are now up at 24. Are they going to look to add another weapon, or are they going to improve the defense? And that's what they will do with linebacker Dalton Jett out of Oklahoma. Jett is going to come in as a 73 overall with hidden development. He's a player who I think the Eagles would have considered had they moved down from 12 or moved up from their top second rounder, which is the 33rd overall pick, the top selection in the second round. So keep in mind the Eagles are up in like probably 6 or 7 picks. The Miami Dolphins here at 25 via the San Francisco 49ers select Omi Ongokwo, another pass rusher who was projected to go earlier, who happened to fall. The Dolphins would have had the 3rd overall pick, but since they traded away in the offseason to the Eagles, they only have San Francisco's selection, which is 25. Solid pick here in Ongokwo. They improved the defense even more. Overall, not too bad at all. So that's going to bring up the Dallas Cowboys at 26, and they go with a Westlake Hornet. Tight end Lamar Gallagher. Really interesting pick here by the Dallas Cowboys. They know the Eagles kind of struggle with tight ends, and Dallas does not have a good tight end, or at least they didn't. Now they do. Westlake's offense doesn't really use tight ends a whole lot, so I think Lamar Gallagher is going to be a better NFL player than he was a college player. Really fun pick by Dallas. The Houston Texans at 27 select Case Cugnet, wide receiver out of Texas. So the other top Texas receiver is up the board, and he will stay in the Lone Star State, joining the Houston Texans. Although Cugnet only has normal dev, I think this is a pretty solid selection here in the late first by Houston. Kansas City at 28 selects Kamani Curry, cornerback out of Utah, a player I think the Eagles were really looking at with their top second-round pick. Really high character kid. He only has normal development. I thought it would have been a little bit higher, but still not a bad player by any stretch as the Chiefs try to improve their defense. Buffalo Bills at 29 with a really interesting pick. Running back Micah Martinez out of the University of Michigan. Martinez comes in as a 77 overall, only normal dev though, and he is already 23 years old. So certainly a step down from the top 2 running backs, Miller and Morris. But I do think Micah Martinez can be a really nice addition to the Bills' offense who could use some more explosiveness out of their backfield. The Chicago Bears at 30. Will they improve their stout defense or get another weapon for Justin Fields? Or they're going to protect Justin Fields as they go with offensive tackle Blake Austin out of Harvard. Probably the first Harvard player to be a first-round pick in quite some time. Austin's a little bit raw, but he does have hidden development, so I think he has the chance to improve quite a bit and hopefully be a solid right tackle for the Chicago Bears in years to come. The reigning NFC champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the clock here at 31. They will add to their treasure chest of wide receivers, selecting Westlake's Maurice Rogers. Mo Rogers is a 76 overall with hidden dev, 6'5", 235, sort of a poor man's Walmart Mike Evans. I don't know how much he's going to play in year 1, considering they have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Antonio Brown. But I think Maurice Rogers can be a pretty good player at the next level. Another guy like Lamar Gallagher, who I think is going to be a better pro than college player. The defending Super Bowl champions, Baltimore Ravens, are on the clock. The only team now in front of the Philadelphia Eagles as they select Ryan Irwin, a defensive end out of Notre Dame. Irwin is going to come in as a 73 overall. He also has hidden dev. A lot of hidden dev players in the first round, and there really weren't many awful busts outside of maybe Rube Rowley, the corner, who went number 2 overall. So that will conclude the first round. Nehemiah Richardson and Tykeem Keone are now Philadelphia Eagles. Quite a few Westlake players are off the board. 2 QBs going round 1. For the remaining rounds, we're not going to go over every pick. We're going to go over all of our picks, any Westlake player off the board, or any other picks that are relevant, just so we can go quicker, because a lot of these picks don't matter all that much. But this one does. First pick of the second round, the Philadelphia Eagles are on the clock, and I really had a hard time deciding what I wanted to do here, because a lot of the top projected players didn't really interest me that much, or we didn't scout them. I thought about Avery Horn, the guard out of Westlake. Huckleberry High Sauce could have been fun, but we did just draft a receiver. Kyrie Calhoun, CJ Thomas. A few guys the Eagles could consider if they hold on to this pick, which they would end up doing. With the first pick in the second round, 33 overall in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select CJ Thomas, cornerback out of UCLA. Thomas had a disappointing season this year for the Bruins, was a mid-first round projected player, but saw his stock dip into the second round. But he's not going to have to wait to hear his name called in day 2. 73 overall with hidden development. It is a little bit of a reach. He's the 50th ranked player in the class. And this is an interesting pick because the Eagles already selected a corner today in Nehemiah Richardson, but they're going to double down, adding CJ Thomas. Thomas is a very different player, though. He's a lot more raw. The play rec, awareness, and tackling are way lower, along with the zone coverage. But this guy's ball skills are phenomenal. 76 catching. Some of the best hands for a corner in this year's draft class. And his playmaking ability is why the Eagles are picking him here. Thomas is nowhere near as consistent or as reliable as Nehemiah Richardson, but he makes more plays on the football, and I think their contrary game styles could complement each other well. Once Darius Slate gets old and regresses, I think CJ Thomas and Nehemiah Richardson could be the cornerback duo of the future. And don't forget about Michael Ojemudia either. The Eagles have a nice four-headed monster at the cornerback position. The Lions on the board at 33. They're going to go with a quarterback, Ja'Cory Johnson out of Louisiana Tech. This is a very notable pick. Johnson is a 70 overall, but he does have hidden depth. 6'8", cannon for an arm. He has a beautiful deep ball. He's not overly mobile, and his accuracy needs some work, but he can sling it. Probably going to sit behind Jared Goff for a year, but who knows? Maybe he could be the starter down the line. The Dolphins select Coda Montana. Once a projected top 5 pick, falls into the second round, but I suppose he's an upgrade over Austin Jackson. Ezekiel Echo out of Shippensburg to the Vikings. The Rams with their first pick get Devontae Bowie from Notre Dame. And the Seattle Seahawks pick a quarterback. Capricus Falconbridge out of Kentucky is a Seahawk, 69 overall with hidden dev. What the hell, Seattle? Every year, their first pick is always something really stupid, and this year is no different. Picking a freaking quarterback. Are they going to trade Russell Wilson at the end of the year or something? Like, what the hell? I don't get that pick at all. I really like Falconbridge as a prospect, but Seattle, what are you doing? Uji Carmelop to the Jets, solid corner out of Arkansas. Trace Bennett-Saylord to the Broncos. Are they not going to pay Noah Fant at the end of the year? Huckleberry High Sauce is a Raider. 77 overall with 98 speed. They call him White Lightning at Rutgers for a reason. He's one of the older players in the draft at 24 years old, but he's going to slide nicely in at that slot position. And now the Raiders have 2 of the fastest receivers in the league with him and Henry Ruggs. The Saints, with their first of 2 second-round picks, get Kojo Mercury. The Giants select a Westlake Hornet, Avery Horn, right in front of the Philadelphia Eagles. I think Horn would have been a great pick for the Birds had he still been on the board, but the Giants decided to pick him instead. Really athletic lineman, has some work to do, but I like his versatility along the line. So the Eagles are now back on the clock here at pick 44, 12 in the second round, and it's kind of hard to find good fits for this pick, but I think Philly is looking at linebacker Kyrie Calhoun and tackle Tyler Palumbo. With the 44th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select Tyler Palumbo, offensive tackle out of LSU. Palumbo is going to come in as a 73 overall with normal development. I accidentally forgot to show his attributes. I'm really sorry, but I do like this pick a lot. Palumbo is not really a player I talked about a ton. However, I mocked him to the Eagles with this pick in the mock draft, and the more I thought about it, I think Palumbo makes a lot of sense. He's only 21 years old, and he's a really good pass blocker. I'm not sold on Andre Dillard at all at left tackle, not to mention he's on the final year of his deal. So I think Palumbo and Dillard will compete for that left tackle spot at the beginning of the season, but Palumbo being younger and better is probably the favorite to win that spot. Kyrie Calhoun goes with the very next pick to the New England Patriots. The Jaguars select running back Bashar Reno III as Urban Meyer decides to Urban Meyer himself. Jaden Dobbs to the Packers, another defensive back off the board to Green Bay. Running back Cassius Henderson to the Falcons, solid selection. And then the Saints select quarterback Braylon DeBose-Durr of Pittsburgh. He is a 71 overall, which is higher than Ian Book, which means he's going to be the Week 1 starting quarterback. Wow, what an interesting pick. This is the selection they got from Pittsburgh in the Xander Vanderwall trade. Maybe the Saints think DeBose-Durr is better. He's certainly heavier at 300 pounds. The Falcons right back on the board. They select Sheldon House, defensive tackle out of Westlake. He's a very refined player. I don't think he's ever going to be a star, but I think he's going to be a serviceable player in the middle of the Falcons' defensive line for quite a while. Him and Grady Jarrett should be a nice duo going forward. That'll bring up a Washington football team, a division rival, and they select Venus Moon. Really good value here in the mid-second round. I thought he was going to go in the later portion of the first round, but Washington's going to capitalize with his fall. He's not the highest rated, only a 72 overall without morale questions, but he does have hidden depth, and he also has a sick neck brace. The Chargers on the board now at 20. We're starting to get towards the end of round 2. And Los Angeles selects linebacker Alex Decker out of Notre Dame, trying to improve their front seven. Really fun selection here by the Jaguars. They pick up wide receiver Kadarius Franklin out of Westlake. 73 overall with hidden development. He has a skill set very similar to Casey Shock of the Jaguars franchise last year. Blazing speed, blazing acceleration, 99 agility, and he's also a really good short route runner, which is interesting. Most deep threats cannot run short routes, but that's actually one of his strengths. Really fun pick there by the Jaguars as the Bengals select linebacker Tahante Wakefield. The Seahawks actually make a somewhat solid pick. Otmar Shepard out of Georgia. Xavion Henderson goes to the Browns. His brother was for running back Cassius Henderson, who went a little bit earlier to the Falcons. Jaziel Collins to the 49ers. And the Cowboys pick up Chet Kucharski out of Westlake. So Kucharski is likely mainly going to be a wide receiver in the NFL, but he was a high school quarterback, played a little bit of QB in college. So I'm curious to see how the Cowboys use him and if he gets some snaps at quarterback. That should be fun. Final few picks of the second round. The Texans select Jamal Adams, defensive back out of Florida State. Another defensive back off the board, it's Devin Dawkins to the Chiefs. Brett Saras, defensive tackle, goes to Buffalo. Bartholomew Claybrook, corner out of Delaware, to the Bucs. He has great hands. Lucas Langley to the Bucs. And then the Ravens finish it off with defensive tackle Leopoldo Montverde out of South Carolina, one of my favorite picks in the second round. The Ravens have a strong track record of developing raw defensive linemen, and they hope Montverde, at just 21 years old, can be next in line. So that will conclude the second round. 2 more picks for the Eagles as they select C.J. Thomas and Tyler Palumbo, adding another corner and improving the offensive line, trying to get younger there. Quite a few other fun picks. I believe we had 3 QBs go out the board to the Lions, Seahawks for whatever reason, and Saints respectively, and quite a few Westlake players as well. The Eagles have 2 more picks here in the third round as we start off with the Indianapolis Colts, and they start off with a really interesting pick of running back Isaiah King out of TCU. King comes in as a 75 overall, and with losing both Nyheim Hines and Marlon Mack in the offseason, the Colts want to add some more juice in the backfield. Jonathan Taylor's good, but Jonathan Taylor alone is not enough. So I think Isaiah King here is a pretty solid selection. The Lions add linebacker Tyler Blevin, and at this point in the draft, it is harder to find good players. You're going to see some more not-so-great guys, including this 59 overall tackle to the Vikings. Not a ton of great players so far being picked here in the third round. I do like Aquan Carver, linebacker out of Tennessee, to the Atlanta Falcons. I think he's pretty good. Tyshawn Baldwin, not too bad to Carolina. And the Broncos with a solid pick here in Michael Hopkins, corner out of Westlake. Hopkins primarily played in the slot with the Hornets. Doesn't really have a lot of experience on the outside, but I think regardless, he's going to be a fun player at the next level and has plenty of room to grow. But at just 22 years old, I think he could be pretty good. Raiders with a pretty solid pick here in defensive tackle George Johnson, and the Saints select former Westlake Hornet Noel Payne. Payne is only a 69, nice, But at 21 years old, again, he's a little bit raw, had a disappointing redshirt sophomore season, but still entered the draft, and in my opinion, has the physical upside to be really good. I think the Saints have a strong track record of player development, so I think Noel Payne there is a really strong fit. The Giants have a really interesting pick right in front of the Eagles in Humphrey Hawksworth, running back out of North Carolina. Really good receiving back. The Giants want a change of pace option for Saquon Barkley, or maybe they want a replacement for Saquon Barkley, who is on the final year of his contract. So maybe they don't want to pay him and hope Humphrey Hawksworth could be the running back of the future. I don't know. So that brings the Eagles on the board with their first of 2 third-round selections, and I think the goal here is BPA. Best player available. With the 12th pick in the 3rd round, 76th overall in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles will be selecting running back Rosemond St. Clair out of the University of Kansas. Despite only being 5'7", St. Clair, a late first-round talent, will be the selection. 75 overall, hidden dev, the 21st ranked player in the class. The Eagles were deciding between St. Clair and Humphrey Hawksworth, but since Hawksworth was just picked, this selection was a lot easier. Rosemond St. Clair is a really interesting player. Him and Hawksworth have very similar skill sets as receivers, and I think St. Clair is kind of like Kenneth Gainwell, but on steroids in a way. Really versatile back, phenomenal receiver out the backfield. We've seen what guys like Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara can do at the next level, and the Eagles are hoping that Rosemond St. Clair can bring that same juice and explosiveness out of the backfield. Kenneth Gainwell is cool, but St. Clair is better. Miles Sanders is cool, but he's on the last year of his contract, so I think there's definitely a legit shot that St. Clair could be the running back of the future if he develops. Really fun pick there by the Eagles. I'm excited to see what his career looks like. Jack Day to New England. I think that's a nice pick. Solid defensive back out of Clemson. Junior Barkley, linebacker of the Packers. They've really improved their defense. Tristan Bailey-Jennings to the Titans. That's not a bad pick. He's a 72 overall. Kadarius Henderson to the Falcons. His brother, Cassius Henderson, was the Falcons' second-round pick. So it's kind of cool to see them teaming up again. Eric McAvoy, running back to the Washington football team, and the Chargers have a really fun pick here in KJ Wagner. This pick is significant because this is who the Eagles were going to pick with their next selection, which is only like 3 or 4 picks away. So the Chargers, out of nowhere, took the guy the Eagles really wanted and thought there was no way he would be picked, but he was. Cam Johnson to the Cardinals and Marcus Sorensen, tight end, to the Bengals. That brings the Eagles up on the clock. They were going to pick KJ Wagner here, but now it's a little bit tougher. Dexter Dixon II, the wide receiver out of Mississippi State, is really tempting. But the Eagles have already selected Tykeem Keon. They're going to go with a different route. With the 23rd pick in the 3rd round, what number is this overall? I don't know. In the 2022 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select Jeremiah Nnabuke, defensive back out of Missouri. Really solid selection here by the Eagles. Nnabuke is a 73 overall, only normal dev, but a really solid 3rd round selection. Although Philadelphia is pretty good at safety already with the recently signed Deshaun Elliott, along with Terrell Burgess and Kayvon Wallace, doesn't hurt to add more talent, and Nnabuke, in my opinion, is the best player on the board, which is why he's the pick. I think Nnabuke has the versatility to play free safety and strong safety, which is relevant because if he wants to get on the field, I think he's going to have to do a lot of different things, and that's really the great thing about his skill set. Although the Eagles already have 2 set starters at safety with Burgess and Deshaun Elliott, I think as a 3rd safety, Nnabuke could be really solid early on, and I think eventually, if he develops, he could be a starter. Really fun player, very solid use of a 3rd round pick here for the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Birds are continuing to kill it during this draft. 6 really fun players so far added to the team. The Cleveland Browns now up following the Birds. They will select Matthew Saylor, another 3 safety out of Villanova. He would have been a solid selection there too. And then winding down the 3rd round, not a ton of other notable picks. The Cowboys do pick a quarterback in Carter Birch. So I guess they did not draft Chet Kucharski to throw passes. I guess he's going to be a wideout. Eric Maldonado to the Texans probably would have been considered with both of the Eagles' 3rd round picks had they not already chosen Tyler Palumbo. The Bills have a quarterback. They pick Rock Balifoba from Liberty, so I guess they want like a set backup for Josh Allen. Dexter Dixon III is finally off the board of the Chicago Bears. Why he fell, I don't really know. He's a 72 overall with hidden dev. Really, really good player. He has great hands, and he's also super fast. Now, his route running sucks. His deep route running is abysmal, but he can run past guys with his speed. So he does have that going for him. Raw player, but I think he has a lot of potential. Final 2 picks of the third round, starting with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they're going to select a former Westlake Hornet with this selection in defensive back Brandon Ralph. Ralph is a 70 overall, but he does have hidden dev. Very similar player to Michael Hopkins, a guy who mainly is experienced in the slot. Ralph does have more experience on the outside than Hopkins, and it didn't really go all that well. But I think Brandon Ralph could be a fun player in the NFL. And then to finish out the third round, the Ravens are going to go with another corner in Josh Nortman out of the University of Florida. So a pretty fun third round. The Eagles with 2 more selections. They had running back Rosemont St. Clair and defensive back Jeremiah Nabuke. 2 players who I think could have really strong roles early on, and they both have some nice upside. So now we get to day 3. The Eagles have less day 3 picks, I believe, and there are also less relevant players on the board. So we'll be able to go through these final 4 rounds a little bit quicker. Let's start with the big storylines still here with Delshawn Callaway-Riley, a projected first-round wideout, still on the board. He was originally projected to go in the 3rd, 4th round, but he had a great combine that jumped him up, and, well, teams clearly don't like him. He's still available for whatever reason. The Colts draft Matt Franchenzo, another player who was at one point projected to go early. He is going to go to Indy. A lot of solid early 4th round selections. Troy Milner to the Vikings, Harvey Ratliff to Miami, Isaiah Dye to Cleveland. All really good. Jumbo Fatico to Houston. Who's going to ruin this streak? It's, you guessed it, the Seattle Seahawks. I give the Seahawks the benefit of the doubt, but geez, they for the most part do not know how to draft. Isaiah Miller to the Jets. The Broncos get offensive lineman Mike Oxlawn out of Washington. Ardarius Stevenson to the Raiders. Baraka Makafuli to the Broncos, who have used 3 of their first 4 picks on DBs. The Eagles' original 4th round pick was that of the Raiders. They just selected Zach Wilson. And then the following pick is wide receiver Josiah Mendez out of Westlake to the Patriots. I love this fit for New England, and I think this is a perfect landing spot for Mendez, who has a lot of experience in the slot, and New England knows how to develop these types of receivers. Mendez had a really strong senior season, grabbing 12 receiving touchdowns. I think he's going to be a great fit with the New England Patriots. The Eagles are only a few picks away. Hopefully their player does not get sniped, as there's Derek Watson. Sure enough, the guy they wanted goes 2 picks ahead of them. It's quarterback Ladarius Dobbs out of Florida to the Tennessee Titans. 68 overall with normal dev. It's not like he's some overly special prospect, but as a 4th round quarterback, I think he would have been a nice pick for the Philadelphia Eagles with his arm strength, solid mobility, and pretty good accuracy outside of his short game. The only team left now is the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they will select Devon Goodwin Jr. So as I previously stated, the Eagles were going to pick Ladarius Dobbs here, but with him off the board, Philadelphia is going to have to go with a separate route. Still quite a few good players on the board. The Eagles had plenty of backup choices, so this isn't the worst case scenario. With the 18th pick in the 4th round of the 2022 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select wide receiver Troy Dobbs from the University of Florida. If you can't get Ladarius Dobbs, why not get his brother? Troy Dobbs is going to come in as a 72 overall, the 61st ranked player in the class, with normal depth. I think Dobbs is probably going to be the Eagles' 4th receiver early on, so he's going to have a role year 1, and I think he's going to have an opportunity to showcase his skill set. No, he's not better than Smith, Keon, or Rager, but he's going to get plenty of snaps, and for a 4th round pick, I think giving him early snaps is going to be great. Dobbs is a very well-rounded player, 6 foot, 200 pounds, solid speed. The big knock on him is his hands. He drops a lot of easy passes, but other than that, he is really good. Good route runner, good with the ball in his hands, but he just has to focus on the easy plays and the little things, and if he does that, I think he could be a really good pro in the NFL, and I think for the 4th round, it's worth to take a flyer on a guy like Troy Dobbs. If the Eagles can develop his hands, he's going to be a really darn good player. Moving forward with the rest of the round, the Washington football team drafts a guard who has a lot of letters in his name. The Chargers get quarterback Orlando Bertolino out of Princeton. Interesting pick. Norton Phipps, tight end of the Ravens, that's a nice pick. Cincinnati also have a good pick in Quan Edwards-Williams. Clay Cook, running back to the Seahawks. Easton Colbert to the Browns. A lot of really good picks here down the stretch here in the 4th round. It seems like teams are getting some solid value picks. Dallas finally goes defense, but he's only a 64 overall. And then the final few picks of the 4th round, nothing too notable other than the Chiefs picking a quarterback, Hank Lewis, out of Rice. So I guess they want to have a consistent backup for Patrick Mahomes. The Bills with a quarterback in Bill Ryan. And then the Bucs pick a quarterback, Rick Johnson. So a lot of quarterbacks off the board here to finish out the 4th round. So if you want a quarterback, you're going to have to pick one nowish. The Eagles only had one 4th round selection, but a pretty good one in my opinion in wide receiver Troy Dobbs, one of the higher rated players in this 4th round, and he is 4 ratings higher than his brother, Ladarius Dobbs, who the Eagles were originally going to pick. So maybe Dobbs getting picked is the best thing that could have happened. Now we are into the 5th round, and the Colts are on the board first, but there is a player the Eagles really want to pick here, and they are willing to move up to do so. The Eagles are going to move up 11 spots from 140 to 129, and in the process, the Eagles will give up their 7th rounder, 204 as well. I think this is a lot for the Eagles to move up. This is really good value for the Colts, but the Eagles want to make sure they get their guy, and they don't want to risk him being picked. With the 129th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select Winston Johnson, linebacker from Westlake. Johnson is a 69 overall, nice, and he has hidden development. Although he was projected to go in the 7th round, you can't blame the Eagles for wanting to make sure they get their guy because he's quite good. I really like Winston Johnson, and obviously I've seen every Westlake game that he's played in, so I've watched a lot of Winston Johnson, and his progression from his freshman season until his junior season has been really fun. As a junior, he was one of the best players on that elite Westlake defense that ended up winning the national title over Virginia Tech. Johnson is a super versatile linebacker, has great athleticism. He can get to the backfield as a pass rusher and a run stopper. He's pretty good in coverage as well. Doesn't have many glaring weaknesses. And as I said, he was outstanding this past year as a junior, decided to declare for the draft, and I think he's going to have a major role as a rookie in the Eagles defense. Moving forward, Jackson Hope out of Bloomsburg to the Lions, Mello Clement to the Dolphins. And then the next interesting pick here would be by the Carolina Panthers as they select quarterback Jake Grover. Former Westlake Hornet, transferred to LSU. Grover has a cannon for an arm. The rest of his game is a little bit weak, but I don't know if Carolina's sold on Sam Darnold being their franchise quarterback. So I think picking Jake Grover here in the 5th round is a really nice pick for them. The Denver Broncos up next. They select Vlad Van Vector, one of the youngest players in this draft class at 20 years old. He is a 69 overall with hidden dev. Denver has had an outstanding draft, really improving their defense, adding 3 Westlake players in Florentino Phoenix, Michael Hopkins, and Vlad Van Vector. The Broncos have to be one of the biggest winners in this draft class, even though they didn't really improve their quarterback position. Their starter next year is going to be Drew Lock, but they've been going best player available, and it's been working. Moving forward now, the Eagles do have another 5th round pick, 22nd in the round. That's like 12 picks from now, so fairly soon. Justin Bennett, Westlake wideout going to the New Orleans Saints. A lot of Westlake fans might not know this name. Justin Bennett was with the team a few years, really did not get a ton of playing time, and he reminds me a lot of Zeke Bowman, a guy who never really got to play at Westlake, was drafted in the 5th round last year in our Jaguar series, and he became a really good player. So hopefully, Justin Bennett, who playstyle-wise is quite similar to Zeke Bowman, can have a similar career. I'm going to be rooting for his success. Going forward now, Terrence Redlight to the Giants. The Colts pick Ben Chilwell. That was originally our pick, remember, but obviously we used it to move up. The Eagles pick is getting real close now. They have a guy that they're really eyeing up and they want to pick him. And unfortunately, that player was defensive end Leo Willis-Cruz, who goes to the Jets. So again, the Eagles get pick sniped right before their pick. But you may notice there is still a really interesting player still on the board who the Eagles have been tempted by for a while, and they can't really pass him up anymore. With the 22nd pick in the 5th round, the Philadelphia Eagles select Delshawn Callaway Riley, wide receiver from Illinois. The 1st round projected receiver is finally off the board. Callaway Riley is not terrible. He comes in as this 69 overall, nice, with normal development. So certainly not worth a first-round pick, and teams were right to pass on him. But he had no business falling this far, and I'm trying to figure out why exactly did he fall after his great combine performance. I get he's not phenomenal. He is a big-bodied receiver, doesn't really have the stiffest of hips. His hands are decent. His route running needs to improve. But something I noticed was his medical reports came back very poor. An injury-prone player did not pass a lot of teams' physicals, so that's why he slipped. The Eagles figure here in the 5th round, we're getting a player who was supposed to be off the board 4 rounds ago, so why not take a shot on him? Big, fast receiver, has a lot of work to do, and obviously the medical stuff is concerning, but the Eagles have had so many draft picks today, they've done so well, they figure why not take a shot and hope it works. So Deshaun Callaway Riley's historic fall will finally come to an end. I think a lot of people are going to like that pick, like his story, and I really want to see him do well. A quarterback off the board, Anastaze Oluet to the Cleveland Browns. He's an interesting prospect. He's low 60s in rating, though. The Texans with a really solid pick here, and Baptiste Toussaint, linebacker out of Miami. This is Emmanuel Toussaint II's twin brother. Not quite as good as Emmanuel, who was Washington's first-round pick, but a 71 overall in the 5th round as a 21-year-old linebacker, that's a good pick. Had Winston Johnson been off the board, he would have been their backup plan at linebacker. So Baptiste Toussaint, nearly an Eagle, but instead he is going to be a Houston Texan. Jalen Anderson to the Bills, I think he's a pretty good prospect, 68 overall. The Bears get a nice guard who has a pretty long name. And then to finish out the 5th round, the Bucs with a steal in defensive tackle, P.J. Clairford, who's a 72 overall, I believe only 21 years old. And then Dorian Elam, running back out of Southern Miss to the Ravens. So that will conclude the 5th round, an eventful round 5 for the Eagles, moving up for linebacker Winston Johnson, and also selecting Deshaun Callaway Riley, the first-round projected receiver. Finally, here's his name in the late 5th round. He is going to compete, likely to be the wide receiver 5. So now on to the 6th round. There really are not many notable players left, so the only picks we're really going to dive into are going to be the Eagles picks. The Eagles have a very early 6th round pick, 5th in the round, so they are almost up, only 2 picks away. Harlan Tremblay, running back out of Texas, that's a nice pick for the Dolphins. And then Matt Morrison of the Vikings. So the Eagles are now on the board. They don't have many players left who they have scouted, so it's slim pickings, but there are still quite a few guys left on the board who the Eagles like. With the 5th pick in the 6th round of the 2022 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select Scoop Shock, cornerback / athlete / whatever you want to do with him, out of Toledo. Scoop Shock is a really weird prospect. So he comes in as a 65 overall with normal development. You're probably wondering, why would you pick a corner who can't cover or tackle with a draft pick? So let me explain. 98 speed, 99 excel, 98 agility. He's blazing fast. He also has 79 catching, and he's a great kick returner. So long story short, he's a cornerback who's not really a good cornerback, but he is a weapon with the football in his hands. His older brother, Casey Shock, was in our Jaguars franchise last year. Great slot receiver. Now, Scoop Shock doesn't really have a set position. I think the Eagles are going to use him on both sides of the ball, mainly offense, because he's just not an NFL caliber corner. But if you put the ball in his hands as a kick and punt returner and maybe in as a receiver in certain packages, he could be really interesting. So I think the Eagles are going to have to come up with creative ways to use him, but I think Scoop Shock could be a very fun player in the NFL. So Scoop Shock is now an Eagle. The Eagles have another 6th round pick, however, which is just a few selections away. And as you can see, the final pick before them is Marmaduke Courthrop. That's a cool name, going to the New York Giants. So the Eagles are up, round 6, pick 12. Again, they don't have a lot of guys scouted. With the 12th pick in the 6th round, the Philadelphia Eagles select Maddox Gillard, quarterback, Boston College. Gillard is a 68 overall, and the Eagles will end up picking a quarterback after all, and he is the same rating as Ladarius Dobbs, who the Eagles were targeting earlier. Gillard was projected to go undrafted, but he is certainly better than that undrafted rating projects. Now, is Gillard going to be the Eagles' franchise quarterback? Probably not, but there is a lot to like about him. Gillard is a really talented player. He is a dual threat who has really strong ability with his legs. He's a good runner. His arm strength is not outstanding. It's not awful. He does have an NFL caliber arm, but it does have a lot of work. He does have some splash throws like that one on the run, but his accuracy is a little bit inconsistent and it needs to be improved. I do think he can be developed, and I think for now, he can be a good second or third stringer behind Jalen Hurts and possibly PJ Walker, depending on how the preseason goes. If Jalen Hurts is a rough year, then who knows? Maybe the Eagles get Maddox Gillard some snaps, and who knows? Maybe he plays well, and maybe the Eagles think he can be something. So a really interesting selection there by the Birds, adding a quarterback. Now the Eagles are out of draft picks for now. Hint, hint. So we're going to skip a little bit forward, see if the Eagles do move back into the draft or if their day is done. And if this is it, they've had a phenomenal draft. Amante Rodgers to the Cardinals. That's a really good pick. I believe he's a 71 overall. The Jets pick one of the final Westlake Hornets on the board in Noah Cox, who is only 5'7". He is a 71 overall with normal development. Didn't get a ton of snaps until his senior season, but I do like his skill set. Pretty fast, pretty good hands, and very impressive with the ball in his hands. I think he's going to be a fun player with the Jets. Him and Matt Miller are teammates again, so that's cool. Nearing the end of the 6th round, not really many great players left. It's really hard to find gems during this stage in the draft. And, well, because of that, there really aren't many good players here. A lot of 64s, a lot of 63s, and then the final pick of a round is going to be the Chiefs selecting an offensive tackle. So the Eagles add Scoop Shock and, Maddox Gillard. Two really interesting picks. A player without a set position and a quarterback. So I'm curious to see what those two players' futures have in store. And now into the 7th round, I believe there's maybe one or two Westlake players still on the board. Not a lot of notable players otherwise, so we're going to try to get through the 7th round pretty quickly. See if the Eagles move back up, see if there's a guy they want, or if their day will be done. So here into the 7th round, not many great picks so far. Most of these players, again, low to mid-60s. Evan Morrison to the Panthers, that's interesting because I think he was projected to go in the 2nd round. Finally off the board here in round 7. Rigoli to the Saints. He's a pretty good player for round 7. That's not a bad pick by New Orleans, continuing their very strong draft. And as you can see, another good pick, Traylon McClure to the Packers. The Eagles still not making any moves yet. So clearly, unless there's a player they really want, it looks like their day might be done. So let's move up to this Lions pick right here, 24th in the 7th round, and the Lions get a phone call from the Philadelphia Eagles. Quez Watkins had a really strong end to the season. However, the Eagles have drafted 3 receivers today, plus Scoop Shock might get playing time at receiver. Kenneth Gainwell might move to receiver. So long story short, Quez Watkins really isn't needed. The Eagles wanted to trade him to a team where he would have the opportunity to play, that being the Lions, who will give Philadelphia their 7th rounder this year and a 6th rounder next year. Fair value for Watkins, who probably would have been on the roster bubble, but I really want to see Quez Watkins do well. I think he's a really good player. We just don't need him. That's the thing. Had we not picked all those receivers, I would have gladly kept him, and I wanted to make sure he would get to play. So that's why he's going to Detroit. So who will the Eagles be selecting with their final pick, 24th overall in the 7th round? They're going to select kicker Zebediah Phoenix II out of Westlake. So, fittingly, their final pick is their highest rated pick. Phoenix is a 79 overall, 7th ranked player in the draft. For the 216th pick, I don't care if it's a kicker, that's really good. Phoenix also has hidden development, and even though Jake Elliott had a really good season last year, clearly the Eagles think Zebediah Phoenix is better than Jake Elliott. Zebediah Phoenix has been one of the best kickers in college football the past 4 years, has a booming leg. His accuracy has been a little bit inconsistent, but as a senior, it was very strong, and he knows how to make the big kicks. This one right here won Westlake the national title game against Virginia Tech. I don't think there's going to be a kicker battle in the preseason. I think Zebediah Phoenix is outright going to win the job over Jake Elliott. Jake Elliott is easily a top 32 kicker in the NFL, so I would expect him to get traded. The Eagles probably won't get much, but I think Jake Elliott will still be employed as an NFL kicker because he is a good player. Dominic Hughes to the Chiefs. That's a good late 7th round pick. And now it's time to see who Mr. Irrelevant is going to be. To the Baltimore Ravens, who will be the final pick in the draft? Now, they're not going to show us here, but the selection ended up being Tracy Adams, a left tackle who's a 66 overall. Really not all that exciting. So that includes the 7th round. The Eagles do move back up. They draft a 79 overall kicker in Zebediah Phoenix II, far and away the highest rated player in the 7th round of this year's draft. So that will conclude the first draft here in our Madden 22 franchise with the Philadelphia Eagles, and that'll conclude the Season 1 offseason. I really like our draft. I think we did a great job capitalizing on the treasure chest of assets that we had going into the draft, and we picked up a bunch of good players for this team. In the first round, we stuck with 3 and 12 and drafted 2 studs. Nehemiah Richardson, who's going to wear number 23. He's going to be an outside starting corner day 1, and I believe he has the chance to be a superstar, which is why we picked him 3rd overall. Him and Darius Slay is going to be a nasty duo. Tykeem Keone, for now I have him wearing number 9. I'm not sure if I'm going to stick with that. Let me know what you think of that. And then throughout the other rounds, a lot of really good players. CJ Thomas, Tyler Palumbo, they're going to play a lot early. Rosemont St. Clair's going to get an opportunity, and then a lot of these guys down the stretch, hopefully they can develop as well. So that will conclude today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. Here's a look at our schedule. I think I'm going to live stream the preseason within the next couple days, and then from there we'll go to the regular season. Our first 2 games are against rookie starting quarterbacks. Week 1, we play Malachi Madison, the number 1 overall pick in the Colts, and then Week 2, we play Braylon Dubose-Durr and the New Orleans Saints, which should be fun. Make sure to leave a like, make sure to subscribe, make sure to turn on the notification bell. I'm going to let you guys know in the community tab and over on Discord when the preseason stream will be, but it'll probably be sometimes towards the middle of this week. Hope everybody enjoyed. Peace out.